All right, you can probably hear me now, right? Maybe. We'll see. I am waiting for Ron to get in the office, and I thought I might try logging this thing in and see live by myself for just a moment. Do I get any kind of microphone feed? Content this morning. I'm literally just opening a room and just seeing who joins in. We're waiting for Ron. He says he's going to be about 10 minutes late. Oh man, yesterday was a rough day. Very rough day watching Charlie Kirk get murdered, assassinated. That was very, very difficult. Good morning, John Atakis. Good morning in Fremont. Welcome, welcome. This isn't going to be the main show, I don't think. I'm guessing I'm going to have to end this stream and then Ron will launch again. But wanted to open the room, just see who shows up. I'm sure you guys will join us on the other stream when we start it. It'll be in the same place, Rumble, Peasants Perspective user page. Um, Gosh, just thinking about yesterday, the Charlie Kirk stuff, just wow. I was really surprised at how many people showed up at like the Idaho Capitol in Seattle. There was a big get together. I think there were get togethers all over the country where people came in to, you know, memorialize Charlie and kind of everything that he did for the movement. I personally am extremely grateful to him, and I'll talk about this when we get to video with regards to Charlie Kirk and the January 6 defendants. It's pretty significant. He did a lot. There's probably a good chance that he was the main advocate and probably the final advocate that pushed for close to a blanket pardon for all the January 6ers. So, man, that was a big deal. Douglas, yes, Doug, I love Doug. I can't tell you, it brings me such a smile to know you're on here. I just think of all of our time walking in jail together, talking about exactly what we talk about here on the podcast. It's the same conversation, isn't it, Doug? Oh man, I there's only a handful of people that I've met over the years that are as deep into the news cycle as I can get. I mean, I feel like when it comes to politics, federal politics, I'm pretty deep in the news cycle. I kind of follow it day to day. I see how the stories develop. I see how they develop over time. I see how narratives kind of take the place of truth. We have a lot of things in our country where there's a narrative, an accepted story that is kind of just running, this continuous running accepted narrative that is false. It is not true. The biggest, clearest example that's like a huge wake up is the Gulf of Tonkin incident getting the Vietnam War started. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It was published in textbooks. I was taught about it in high school. I was taught about it again in college. And then a week later, I was taught, oh, yeah, by the way, that thing that we taught last, in the other class that was like a hard fact right out of the textbook, it's totally fake. We had stuff like that happening. Uh, and so the Gulf of Tonkin is one of those ones where it's a narrative that to this day, when people will recount an official telling of the Vietnam War, it usually starts with a Gulf of Tonkin incident, which was totally fake. In our modern era, you have things like the Fine People hoax that allegedly Donald Trump was supporting a bunch of white supremacists. It just wasn't true, but it's been published. There was a book that somebody sent me when I was in prison called Faith Beyond Doubt, I think it was called, or Faith After Doubt, something like that. It was a great book. Really enjoyed it, reading all the way through it. It's like 350 pages. At about 300 pages, the author goes on and on, writes almost a whole chapter about how Donald Trump supported the Nazis and the white supremacists and the neo-Nazis at the Charlottesville rally. Totally false. But this pastor, this religious person, was going on and on about it. Apparently, he was there at that event in Charlottesville, dressed up in his priest's, had his collar on and everything, and he was there to support the people that wanted to get rid of the Robert E. Lee statue because he felt like it was racist. And when Donald Trump gets up and goes, there were fine people on both sides, clearly Donald Trump is on one side or the other of this issue. I don't even know that he expressed exactly what side of the issue was, but he was like, there were fine people on both sides. There were good Americans and Christians who came out to support keeping our historical monuments open, stuff like that. And then there were good Christian Americans who showed up to get rid of those monuments, aka this exact reverend. And then this reverend didn't recognize, because of the news, that Donald Trump was specifically mentioning you. There were fine people on both sides of this event, right? It wasn't like this all opposition thing. There were good people that showed up in support of a debatable issue. Anyways, that was another thing that was in the zeitgeist. And this event with Charlie, I think, is going to be one of those ones that's going to be in the zeitgeist. And I hope the story's told right. I hope we find out who did this assassination. I'll talk about this in the main show, but I think it's bad. Anyways, I was talking about Doug being up on the news cycle. So Doug is one of the few people that I've ever met that was as into the news cycle and knew all the little obscure stories that I would bring up and be like, well, remember this one time this thing happened? And he'd be like, yes. And then this happened. So we had some really, really great discussions. And of those, of course, discussions like that, when you agree on the facts, lead to much deeper discussions on philosophy and spirituality and things like that. And of course, we're in prison, so we're in a pressure cooker, and everything you value in life has been taken from you, and so you're left with just your mind. And Doug is a man with a great mind. So Doug, I'm so glad that you're here and that every now and then you plug in and join us. I often think fondly of those times in jail. There's, we all have a couple fond moments we think of, but in those times, it's people like Doug and others that made it bearable. So thanks for being here, man. We should have Ron coming here pretty soon. I've never done this. I've never just opened the stream without Ron in here. I'm curious if he's going to be able to just plug in on this stream or if he's going to need a new stream. I don't know. Let me try something too while I'm at it. See if I can. No. See, when Ron and I were traveling and we were in different places, we used this Rumble studio to broadcast, and it's great. And then when I was in the studio alone, I used it too. There's some certain things about it, like, on this computer that I'm using, I can't do screen share. I have to use a different computer. But that other computer, for whatever reason, cannot launch the stream. So I have to launch the stream from one computer, tap into it as a guest on the other computer so I can do screen share and stuff like that. It's not a very good system. I'm assuming it'll get better over time. But anyways, I can't screen share from this computer. So I got to wait for Ron. Anyways, man, the news feed yesterday was just full of Charlie Kirk stuff, as expected. But it was also a pretty, busy news cycle. There were other things that happened as well. Although I imagine a lot of things got put on hold. Announcements got put on hold yesterday because the Charlie Kirk incident touches almost everybody in the conservative ecosystem. It is so sad. It is just so sad. I found myself yesterday having the same feeling I often had in prison. I wrote an essay called Living Death. And this concept of living death was brought to me by one of my other January 6th defendants that I was with. Shared a cell wall with him. He's in the room next to me, and he and I used to talk a lot too. And he pointed out that when people left, like when people would get pulled out of the pod or the cell block and would move on to their Bureau of Prison destination, it was like death. I mean, you had no contact with those people. You couldn't hardly get a message out. They couldn't get messages back because if you're in the BOP and you're passing messages over the phone, you're going to get caught. And in fact, one of our January 6ers spent 4 months in solitary confinement because he tried to tell a supporter to tell other inmates that they were in contact with to be good inmates and follow the rules, and that was considered message passing. And so he spent 4 months in the hole for that. Anyways, so it was like you have these people that you're living with, and you have these people you're living with every day. You're eating 3 meals a day with them. You're struggling with them. You're going through the trial of conviction and sentencing, and then all of a sudden they're just gone. And in some cases, some of those people, they spent 2-3 years in prison together, and then all of a sudden somebody leaves, and there's just this hole. There's this part of your routine that's missing, and it's very, having had a child pass away myself, it was very similar. They're just gone. They're just not a part of your routine or your life anymore, and you just have to move on without them. And there's a pain, and like the first few times that happens, it's hard. You feel a lot of angst and powerlessness, and then in prison, a lot of guys will just kind of shut down. They find this place where they can just kind of compartmentalize it and wall it off and just move on. And that's what I found myself doing yesterday. I found myself losing a friend that I didn't even know. Right, I've never met Charlie Kirk. Because of the January 6th situation, my circle has gotten to the point where we're 1 degree of separation. Like, I know people who know him, and in fact, I became aware of his assassination yesterday from another January 6er in a group chat that I'm in, whose, I think, brother works for Charlie Kirk and was standing under the platform with him when he got shot. He's the one who said Charlie Kirk is dead, almost before the viral videos went out, almost before any of that. And there was a moment where we thought he made it to the hospital, where he was maybe stabilized and getting blood transfusions. That may or may not have happened, but on the scene, the people that were there they thought he was done. It was apparently, according to John Solomon, the shot actually did go in the chest and then ricocheted up and came out the throat. It didn't get hit in the throat; it got hit in the chest. But man, what a sad day. Peter Brown, I got on earlier than normal today. Welcome. G. Parazer, good morning. Being in Fremont, taking care of an adult child who has passed and is not what anyone expects to do. Hug your loved ones and have a will. Yes. PB Brown Scouts says, morning, here earlier than usual to be with you all. Thank you for commenting on Rumble. I think we need 4 more chatters for the month. Last month we pushed it right to the last day and we got our last 2 chatters. So thanks for chatting in Rumble. And I apologize, the show's in like upbeat and energy. I'm just waiting for Ron to get in here and we'll get started. He should be here any minute. I'm looking out the office window through another office window, see if his car's here. Yeah. So I found myself yesterday kind of in that same place of needing to compartmentalize and needing to find that spot where the hurt doesn't go any deeper. In fact, there's a line, I don't have the book here because my wife's reading it, but it's called The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. And the main character, Howard Rourke, in that book goes through quite a few setbacks. There's times where he's professionally devastated. There's times where his romantic life is kind of devastated. There's times where he goes through lawsuits. It's a very good book. I highly recommend it. The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. It was the book she wrote prior to Atlas Shrugged, and the character development in Fountainhead is what leads to the character development of Atlas Shrugged. So very good book. They're companion books in my opinion. And in the Fountainhead, the character Howard Rourke, he gets to a point to where the suffering is so bad and the persecution and the things that happen to him are so bad, but he's so self-secure. He's so self-contained in who he is and what his mission and purpose in life is and whatnot, that at one point someone asks him, how do you deal with this? And he says, the hurt only goes so deep. And I remember when I lost my son, this has been probably 10 years ago. I'd have to go look and see exactly how many years, but about a decade ago. When I lost my son, that was the most acute, difficult pain I'd ever felt in my life. And going through all of the prosecution, going through all of the time under federal indictment, all of the time in prison, I never found a point where I hurt that as deeply as I did when I lost my son. And hey, Ron's here. And so I often quoted that to myself: the hurt only goes so deep. Like, if I could survive that, I can survive this. I can take another breath. I can go another day. So anyways, I hope for the people that are close to Charlie, they find that place. They find that place where the hurt only goes so deep and that they can come back and go again. So I started the stream from my laptop. I don't know if you want to try to jump onto this stream or start a new stream.
I'll try to jump on yours.
Do you think you can do it? I did it.
I have no idea.
Let's, how would I do that? I probably need to.
Have to do anything. You got to do it.
Okay, I'll send this to you and Telly. All right, Ron's here. We'll see if we can get everything set up and going in the normal fashion. See if it's even possible to do it this way. We might have to actually close this stream and start the normal stream, but we will see. All right, I just hit you the link. See if you can just come in. Thanks for being patient with us, this guys this morning. We're actually going to start the show out with Charlie Kirk news just to get a little change of pace. I'm sure today on most podcasts and news channels, it's going to be a lot of Charlie. And there were some good things that happened yesterday. Like the inflation numbers came out really low, and employment numbers were revised downwards. So now the Federal Reserve is looking very, very stupid. It always makes me smile. So, were you able to get in, or do you have to?
I have to request it. New questions not needed.
Oh, do I need to?
No, it's like trying to make you set up a new thing.
All right. Why don't I just kill this one and you just do it normal?
All right.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining me. We got almost everybody in here. It seems like all the normals showed up. Okay. We're going to end this stream because this was just a temporary stream while we waited for Ron. And then he's going to start the stream pretty much right away. So watch for the other Rumble stream coming in like you normally would in the morning. And we'll see you in just a minute. I'm going to end this stream and watch for that stream as soon as you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right. See you in just a few seconds.